Okay, guys, welcome to the podcast studio. So we're straight off the stage at GX. It's your first experience of GX. Let's just jump straight in. How did you find it, Henry?
Wonderful. But I think the lesson I learned was to bring prizes. Following Hendrik was a bit of a low blow for me.
No, that was okay. No, thanks for having me. I mean, I think it's a great event, a great crowd, really enthusiastic and into the topic. So it was both a pleasure and honor to be here together with you, and discuss this huge topic of AI. And hopefully we broke it down into sizable chunks for the people to at least get them thinking. They might agree, disagree, but at least as long as something happens, that's, I think, the main goal here.
We unpacked a lot, didn't we? It felt like we were drinking from the fire hydrant at times, didn't it? For sure. One of the first points we covered was this whole concept of pace and do we need to find a pace? Do we need to move quickly? Let's just recap on some of the things that we discussed on the stage. Let's start with yourself, Hendrik, because obviously, clearly, we did discuss whether it is existential for Cisco or...
It is, but going back to the pace and the race, I think the fitness, the agility is maybe the even most important part, and selecting the right race. Yeah. Because your strategic intent, please take a step back. What is your strategic intent with all of this? What about your people? How are you going to educate them? What about your processes? We talked about governance and ethics, huge topic, as well as security and trust. So you should maybe not even change your pace because there is a certain urgency. So I might respectfully disagree a bit with what Gartner stated on there, like, okay, you've got time, take it easy. No, don't take it easy, but take it serious.
I like what you said there, Hendrik, because you kind of challenge that notion of, do you need to change your pace? Is what you're doing actually good enough? Which I think is an interesting point to reflect on, certainly for anyone in this race. But Henry, what's your quick take on the pace side of things?
I think the pace is almost being dictated by the industry. You know, when you look at the proliferation of SaaS platforms across your business, you're not choosing to strategically adopt AI within those platforms. It's being delivered to you monthly, weekly to your business. So you've got all of these different areas in the business running off with AI in those platforms. And that's not to say that the AI is not adding value, but is it aligned with your strategic intent? It's very difficult to control and manage that because the vendors themselves are all in a race to deliver AI and to deliver value and see what works for customers. So they're trying it in places and then rolling it back, or it's very, very difficult to kind of manage the strategic process.
Yeah, and maybe also looking at ourselves, we underestimate what it means by overloading guys like yourself with all this great AI stuff, etc. And that's why also Cisco took a step back and first designed this ethical, responsible AI framework before anything else, to build that governance and trust, and then take it forward from there, and also treat AI not as a tool, but as I stated, more like an operating model across the silos, because that's where the big value is. So again, I would agree with Gardner that don't just rush into one direction and collect all the AI tools and then hopefully magic happens. No. This is hard work. This is bringing organizations together, bringing people together with that strategic intent to then start seeing the benefits and not just optimizing your prime business processes, but really redesigning them.
I'm going to stay with you just now. I know we uncovered a lot about Cisco's approach to AI. I think to summarize it, we certainly had some AI in Cisco products. We certainly covered some AI on Cisco products. And of course, we clearly covered AI at Cisco. 3 key areas there, clearly, such as the breadth and depth of what Cisco's doing in this space. Just give us a little bit of a whistle-stop tour and summary of those 3 key areas. So the AI that's in the product, the AI that's on the product, and how you're using it out. That's a big threefer, right? Okay.
Yeah, I will give you.
Try and summarize that.
I will give it a short version. Yeah. Well, basically AI in our products, and we've been doing that already for 5 or even maybe 10 years, because we were quite lucky that for some reason we already put a GPU into our web exports. Now we can do fabulous AI stuff with it, like facial recognition, people count in the room, etc. But we also, of course, put AI in security, because cybersecurity cannot be done at human scale. we put it into our network to get into predictive networking. Because mind you, it's not just Gen AI, it's also predictive AI. So with that, for example, if you have a wide area network, we can sort of predict that this link is going to be overloaded soon. So let's load balancing it to somebody else. So especially for our service providers, that's magic that we can do nowadays. So that's the AI in. We're doing that, absolutely. AI ads, that is how we implement AI within Cisco. And that's where I said we first built this ethical framework, the security and trust, the governance. What about our people and skills? So we took a big effort in mandatory training everybody on responsible use of AI to the people skills part. Then, and that's why we were struggling still a bit, it's about collapsing those silos, because it's not a lack of adoption or enthusiasm, it's a lack of alignment between the different business processes like supply chain, IT, HR, etc., to bring AI to life. And we're progressing from there. And AI only is, of course, a business opportunity, because AI does not just need a GPU or power, it also needs a heck of a network. And like the CEO of NVIDIA stated together with Chuck on stage on a big event, he says, Chuck, we need to re-rack every data center in the world. And that's, of course, a big, because AI is pretty demanding from a delay perspective, security perspective on the network. So that's obviously, we're a networking company, it's a big opportunity as well.
It's not a 5-minute job either, is it? That's
no.
It's going to certainly keep us busy for a while. That takes us to the bit we're unpacking what McKinsey calls the makers, the shapers, and the takers. And switching back to yourself there, Henry, we had a really interesting debate around this in terms of, certainly it feels like we're definitely going to be shapers and takers here. Just summarize what we were discussing on the stage and what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, for sure. We obviously can't compete with the billions being spent by the big players. But I think that, you know, when you kind of ask yourself what's your value in this race, in this play, and I think it's your industry experience, the kind of human connections that you have, and your unique data set. How can you connect those things and leverage them with those AI tools that are being invested in and developed by the kind of big guys to really drive some business outcomes? And, you know, again, it comes back to that strategic approach to it. That, yeah, you want to do some innovation, some piloting, some testing, but you really need to know what your outcome you're trying to achieve is.
But I think, I mean, there's a big opportunity also for you, not just to be a taker or a shaper, but also a maker. If you look at the development in AI with agentic AI, with your specific domain expertise, you could easily build an agent specifically for your business, which then can talk to your suppliers or your customers and give you a unique competitive advantage.
I also think it's not quite as simple and as clean as making, shaping, taking. I think there's a blend between the edges here. Certainly when I think of some of the stuff we're doing specifically, you got me thinking here, Hendrik, about the agentic side of things. When we're constructing services, specifically in the CX space, where we're really, you know, is it shaping or is it actually making? If you're actually reconstructing something from some basic ingredients, you haven't made those basic ingredients, but you're bringing them together. You may be coding them up, you may be bringing them together into a quite a bespoke user interface. So I don't think it's quite maybe as simple. I think the taking bit, 100%, but I think there's a very blurred line between that making and shaping, and I think we're going to continue to see that. We also spoke about the sort of concept of, if you don't do something for your users, they're going to clearly go away and run off and find this stuff. And we've all got AI running around in our pockets, isn't it? It's everywhere, isn't it? It's coming in the front door, coming in the back door. AI is everywhere. We've got work devices, personal devices. You know, you can have quite a lot of a good thing here. It feels like, but certainly if we don't enable our users, they're just going to come and get something themselves, aren't they? This is the shadow IT problem all over again. But with AI, the stakes are just too high. Yeah, it feels like there's a massive multiplier. Henry, what's your view on this? How do we deal with this bring your own AI problem?
It's very difficult to deal with it. I think you're right. It's kind of a 10x multiplier on the traditional shadow IT. And I think when you think about the particularly generative AI and kind of how it works, the more information you give it, the better the result you get. So our business users are being encouraged to use these models, and the more information they're giving it, the better the business outcome they're getting from it, and the more it's helping them. But that comes with a risk, because it's very easy to overshare, easier than it has been before. And I'm not sure that we will ever control this to a degree. But I think that's a really fundamental shift in shadow IT and the risk of data lost for a business.
I have a very clear opinion about it. We shouldn't fight it. We should give them a better other option. I mean, remember the days when Wi-Fi came about? A lot of organizations said Wi-Fi, no, because then my network expands across these windows and it's not safe. So I said, you think you're not using Wi-Fi? No, we don't. Well, I just walked around and I think you are. Yeah, because people will find their way and install rogue access points. The same with this. So I think that's what we try to do with Cisco. Instead of fighting it and blaming the user, it's an unmet demand. So we created our own ChatGPT called Bridge IT, with even better, also internal Cisco confidential data, to then lure them into that version. Whilst at the same time, give them proper training to explain to them what their responsibility is. Because you can't completely stop it, but you have to play down on the responsibility and the ethics of people that are working for Cisco and say, hey, we don't want you to do this or that. But at the same time, here's a better alternative.
I think that's a little bit easier said than done when we talk about better alternatives, right? Because we've got various different models to use, and we talked about this a little bit. So what might be amazing for one area of your business, and from a general AI perspective, is not going to be palatable for another area of your business. Yeah. For SMEs, we can't go and spend hundreds of thousands on different AI models for different areas of business. We have to be really strategic in that. There's a really fine balance between trying to provide something that's a viable, acceptable alternative to a ChatGPT of the world, but also being cognizant that we're not going to meet all of the needs of our users at one point in time.
Yeah. And this is a great segue to the embedded AI challenge, isn't it? And the domain specific nature that we're seeing begin to emerge now, that, are the big SaaS companies going to give us everything we need? Is it, big Gen AI that's generically pushed out across the employee base? Is it something more vertical, something more domain specific? It's a really interesting debate that you bring up there, because of course that's almost feels like that's the contextualization. That really brings us to that conscious adoption, because if we're not consciously thinking exactly what that strong use case is, what is that domain specific requirement that we're solving for, it feels like we're taking a sledgehammer to a nut and we're never going to get the full value from the technology. What's your view on that? Let's go a little bit deeper on that in terms of, our embedded Gen AI is everywhere. They're clearly not equal, and I think equal is both a technology, what the providers are giving us, as well as a consumer. So a consumer of the software, there's inequality there as well. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm going to counter exactly what I just said. So I think whilst there are absolutely domain-specific models and domain-specific services and that are coming through platforms, I think there is also an element of marketing across a lot of these. So how much tuning are these SaaS platforms doing in their own specific sector? How much of it is just prompt engineering that can be done in a more general model? And I think this is also part of the challenge that we're facing as a consumer, is understanding, actually, has that got some unique expertise built into it? Or is it just a general generative model wrapped into a product to give it the AI label? It's very, very difficult to work out what is really going to add value and what isn't. And like I said before, it's too late. These models are out there. We've got SaaS platforms all over businesses now, because we've moved to the cloud, like every organization.
And AI is within that.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I even compare it. There are some great similarities with when the internet got introduced. Also, companies were like, okay, what am I going to do with it? Do I need to have a website, e-commerce? No, I want to stay away from it. But also AI it's going to be, if it's not already, everywhere. As a consumer, as a working man, as a leader, as an executive. And going back again, we're repeating ourselves, it's this strategic intent. Say, okay, what do we want to use it for? How are we going to protect it? And again, first and foremost, start with your ethical, responsible AI framework to solidify the governance and trust, because it's not just for yourself. people you do business will at some point in time ask the question. So, hey, Alex, Gamma, great company. What is your trust model? You want to see it.
A lot about what the GX this year is all about is about being good together, and we're seeing massive convergence. We see it in the service lines that we provide to our customers. You certainly see it with Gamma working with its vendors, and certainly being in the middle of that with our customers as well, and the goodness that comes from that. I think we even see it in organizations where we're beginning to get less silos now and more convergence in the way that we're working. And it feels like the technology is going to help us on that challenge. So I'm going to very on the fly converge two of the points we discussed whilst we were on stage. I want to converge because it feels like there may be almost two sides of the same coin. We spoke about the augmented learning trap, and we also spoke about the experience problem. So I'm going to try and converge these 2 points together here. So we've got the challenge that we're wanting to shoot for a kind of a win-win that actually delivers a better outcome by essentially bringing the technology and the human together. But on the dark side of things, if you remember, we spoke about the concept of this senior lawyer, and there's a reason why they know how to be a senior lawyer, because they learn. They've gone through that whole experience cycle to learn how to be a lawyer. They've done the hard yards. They've been given the low complexity jobs, if you like, the jobs that you need to do in order to be able to get that experience. You can't just tap a prompt into Gen AI to give you the experience. It's something you have to learn. It's a learned experience. So I've unpacked a lot there. But I was doing that purposely to give you time to think, because I appreciate I'm giving you a twofer here. Yeah. I'm giving you a twofer here. So let's just get your immediate takes on that and just jump in. Yeah, what's your thoughts on those two key points?
I think as human beings, we might be looking for a new relevance. I mean, it's a bit of wishful thinking. Say, hey, AI, it's only augmenting. We still have a job, etc. That's the positive side. I think everybody strives for that because humans want to be relevant. We don't want to be pushed away by technology. But in some cases it will. And what's our new relevant? What's our role? I mean, I sometimes state that the things left for human beings, and that's still very important, is asking the right questions, because the answers are already there. I think that's a unique thing that we can still bring in and use our intelligence, use our humanity to ask the right questions, because that matters a lot on how AI will respond and how the world will look like in 100 years from now. Because if you just exponentially take AI and agentic AI, and don't forget about the other two very powerful sources, which are quantum networking, quantum computing, as well as the brain-computer interface. Don't be mistaken, those are going also exponentially developing themselves. And the combination of the three, you could say it's scary or it's marvelous. But as human beings, we need to rethink about, okay, what's our position? Yeah. So I'm struggling with that.
Scary and great all at the same time. Henry?
I think if we think about the kind of outcomes that we're trying to achieve, and perhaps the kind of unintended consequences that are occurring because of AI, a great example is something that's been around for a little while now is kind of one-click apply in recruitment. As businesses and as recruiters, we want more high-quality candidates. So let's make it easy for those candidates to apply for a job. And that was great. So we got more candidates. We didn't necessarily get more high-quality candidates. We got more candidates. We had to filter those down and verify them and validate them. And that was great. But you throw AI over the top of that, and now every single candidate can apply in seconds with a perfectly tuned CV and application. So now on the other side of the fence, the business trying to hire people, how do you differentiate between those people? How do you understand who really is good and who isn't? I think it's fundamentally going to shift the recruitment industry in a different direction. And I think it will change other industries in a similar way, because you've kind of got AI playing against AI, and that unintended consequence is who knows where it's going to end up.
Yeah. So I guess bringing us, look, it would clearly be impossible for us to unpack everything here. And part of what Gamma's all about is really about helping instill confidence in our customers. Yeah. How do we help to make sure they've asked the right questions, they've considered the right technologies, they've really pressure tested things to the extent that they can actually get that real value out of their technology purchases. Before I ask you to summarize, though, there is one key point that we just cannot ignore, before we depart from this conversation, and that's the big one of trust. So just want to get a quick hot take on you from the whole concept of, I think trust is massive in modern business. It's certainly a big deal when it comes to considering a strategy and getting it right when it comes to AI. So just give us a quick hot take and summary on what your view is on trust, Hendrik.
Well, in general, and I also told it on stage, and maybe it's a bit of a bold statement, but I believe that trust is the new business currency.
Yeah, but
It is the real business currency. I mean, it's so important to build a trustworthy relationship. I mean, I won't say that price or quality of service is not important, but your customers, your partners in your ecosystem are looking for a trustworthy partners. Now, trust can be a very vague term, so you have to materialize it almost, make it real. And therefore, and that's a piece of homework for everybody, and we started doing that, and you can check that on trust.cisco.com, is build your trust model, which includes not just show how you protect your own organization, which very often includes customer data, but also how is your supply chain with the ecosystem that we are working with, how is that secured? How transparent are you? What is your privacy policy? So it's got these 6 layers. Again, you can check the website, trust.cisco.com, which can maybe act as an inspiration because it's super, super important in the world of today.
Yeah, I completely agree. And obviously, recruitment is an incredibly trust-based process. And I think perhaps to follow on from my kind of previous point around verification and validation of credentials and who someone says they are, I think we're going to start to see perhaps a resurgence of face-to-face activity. Wet ink signings, where you say, are we all around the table agreeing on the same thing? And we're seeing this amongst our clients and our customers, a resurgence of face-to-face interviews, moving away from video interviews, Teams interviews, all those kind of things. And I think that says a lot about trust and how important it is to us as humans.
I couldn't agree more. I think in summary, I'd like to maybe just reflect on that last point I surfaced around that whole concept of a weave and an intertwine. I think as technologists, we've grown up with stacks and hierarchies. We like to build things up. If you look at the kind of the models that we've all learned over the years, it feels like we're moving to a different approach for success that is absolutely founded and intertwined with that conscious adoption of a technology that's really driving to powerful outcomes and true business value, and that weave between people, process, AI, or even vendors, customers, and people like gatherers as well. That's going to be my closing thought. Let's just wrap this one up. Henry, what's the last thing you want to mic drop us with today?
I think it's probably important to maintain a really healthy tension within your business around AI adoption, around AI strategy. You need to have some people who are really conservative. You need to have some people that want to innovate and want to try things. And you need to find that conscious balance between those two factors so that you don't get left behind. No one wants to be the next Kodak, right? But do we also want to be leading the charge here? Do we want to be breaking that trust or risking that trust with the humans and the businesses that we work with? I think the upside is infinite, but the downside's potentially even more than that.
Yeah, true. I think I would summarize it as first, think about your strategic intent. Next, design your governance and ethics framework before doing anything else. Then try to look at AI holistically. So almost create it as an operating model and not just a process, not a tool, but something you work with.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us at the GX. As I said, it's moments like this, it's engagements like this that for me is what the value of it is all about. Yeah, it's that shared experience, that shared help that we can all bounce off each other to really, deliver better things and be good together, quite frankly. So thank you very much, guys.